maybe it's true, maybe you believe this, that there comes a point where maybe there is one moment in your life on which everything hinges. And what you decide in that one moment is going to alter everything. Definitely happened in Joseph's life. And it wasn't in prison. It wasn't all the time up to Pharaoh. It happens at this time. 13 years go by from the time he's thrown into the pit by his brother to when he is standing as Pharaoh's main man. And there he is, the big enchilada, the chief poobah, all of those very theological terms we tend to use. But here he is, and the moment for him comes when he sees his brothers again. What's he going to do? Here he is, the big guy. And these fellows, these basically ragamuffins coming in from the land of Canaan into the powerful land of Egypt, hat in hand, just looking basically for a handout. They don't know who Joseph is. And they're coming, and there he is. And what can Joseph do? Anything he wants. Who would have blamed him for evening the score? Who would blame him for saying, you left me for dead, so guess what? I can bump you guys off, and you won't even know it was me. It's sitting there. He has the chance. It's a decisive moment. Why is it so decisive? Because how we see it play off. Consider this. Joseph was 17 when he was thrown in that pit. He was 30 when he was Pharaoh's main man. And he died at the age of 110. We know that from Genesis 50. So for 30 to 110, Joseph lived a life of extreme blessing. He lived a life where he saved the nation of Israel. He lived a life where he saved his father who had loved him so much. He lived a life where he had shown a level of forgiveness that was so profound that even his brothers were turned around for the rest of their lives. Just a life of incredible blessing from 30 to 110. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. For all the right he had to do it, for all the right and legitimacy, if Joseph would have exacted revenge for those 13 years of basic hell that he went through, those 13 years where he was betrayed and lost his youth and everything, if he would have taken revenge for the 13 years, he would have nullified the next 80 years of blessing. For the 13, he would have nullified the next 80 years. In fact, the next 4,000. Because yes, his life was blessed for the rest of his life for what he did. But your life was blessed. You're sitting in here based on his split-second decision when he saw his brothers. It's amazing what a decision can do. What a decision can do. That's what he did. We're incredibly fortunate that he made that choice. That seems almost inhuman. How could somebody forgive at that level? How could somebody do that? How did he manage it? Boy, we'd sure like to know. I'd sure like to know. Well, let's just visit the scene a little bit. In Genesis 45:4, it reads out like this. And Joseph said to his brothers, please come near to me. The lower story for Joseph, the personal day by day in the trenches like we are story, turns out to be an incredible blessing. There's lives saved, there's histories changed in all of this, and the reason why is for this one reason. Somehow Joseph caught a glimpse of the upper story. Somehow he saw the bigger story bigger than himself. He saw the plan that was unfolding. And let me just say this at this point, is that here we are talking an indispensable gift, a skill. Really, because it has to be developed, a skill. If you have any plans of knowing where God wants you to fit in the story, if you have any thought of making it down the road where God would take you, You need this skill. If you have any desire to keep things in proper perspective, you need this skill. What skill? Is somehow as you're going through the day-to-day stuff that we all do, that somehow you're still able to keep an eye on the eternal plane. As you're living the lower story, you're keeping an eye on the upper story. That something's happening that is far bigger than that moment, that single moment that you're living through at the time. That's what Joseph did. He was a master at it. So what can we learn from the master? If you and I want to develop this skill that we need, by the way, you will not survive spiritually without it. What can we learn from Joseph? What can we learn from his lower story? It's not that many things and really not all that profound, but something for you to remember and to hold on to. One, Joseph never stopped living a relationship with God. He never stopped living a relationship with God and all the things involved in a relationship. Joseph could have still believed in God, and none of this would have happened the way it did. No, it happened because he lived a relationship with everything that it takes to have a relationship with someone. He continued to live. Second thing is this: Joseph never stopped in his reverence to God. In that relationship was this quality of reverence. Well, that's pretty basic. We're talking about God. Oh, really? In Western culture, where people think they're doing God a favor if they show up at church? Not reverence. That's just working out a business arrangement. Reverence is when you're going through your lower story and maybe even taking a good kick in the teeth and realize that there is a perfect God who is still working out a story bigger than you are, bigger than the problems, no matter how intense they are at the time, but that God remains bigger than you are. If Joseph didn't know that, this never would have happened, if he didn't remember it. Joseph never stopped in two-way communication with God. Joseph never stopped in two-way communication with God. Once again, something to look at in the Western church culture. For those of us who even do try and have a routine of prayer, what's our idea of prayer? For many of us, it kind of goes like this. Okay, God, here I am. Let me tell you, there's this, and this going on, and that problem, that. Hey, would you go see this person and do this? By the way, I need this, God. Okay, thanks. Nice talking to you. Bye. That's it. That's our prayer. Who knows more? Reverence says God knows more. Who has the bigger view of the bigger picture? Reverence would say God has the bigger view. Then who should be doing most of the talking? Who should be doing most of the talking? Real prayer is somehow getting enough control of yourself to sit still long enough to hear what God wants you to know. And sometimes it's things you won't want to hear. Joseph is a model for you and I. He is part of the upper story even as he lives the lower story. Even though he was one quick life in the big picture, he was an important part. How important might your part be? If you realized where your slot was, where you fit in the big story, if you followed this template, if you were in that relationship, what lives might be touched through you? How far down the line might you impact? What sibling? What spouse? What child? What parent? What grandparent? What nation? Who knows? Unless we live our part in the story. And that involves all the stuff that Joseph went through. And the key phrase in this is, despite the circumstances. Despite, good or bad. Good or bad.